Is that Joseph's number?
Yep.
So he already knows about it?
He said he was on his way.
Okay,
And
we're
so is
on.
Kurt.
Thank you.
Who's that?
Kurt and Joseph are
Oh.
on their way, but
Maybe
go
they're
ahead.
Riding
Okay,
town
well,
on a
let's-
bicycle up the float.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started here. We got a few things to go over that aren't real critical. We have everybody here. So I'll call the meeting to order, and Bob Dolan, Glenn Reed, Jeff Hunt, Bob Martin, Dave Tinas are here for the board members, Gloria Ann and Mayor Mark Jensen, and myself. So, okay, entertain approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at them from the previous meeting of November? That wasn't our last meeting.
It was.
It's been that long.
That's what I thought, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Looks like things moved along without us. It's funny.
I didn't make it.
Yeah, Bobby was
And then
doing
the one before that was September.
Motion to approve?
Everybody's good with it?
Yep.
Okay, so the motion's been made to approve the minutes. Was it seconded? Didn't say that. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, amendment and approval of the meeting agenda. Does anybody want to add anything to the agenda or entertain a motion to approve it? I think it covers everything we need to talk about at this point. Unless somebody has another issue that they wanted to bring up, we could add to it or maybe under discussion later on. So does somebody want to make a motion?
Most to approve the meeting agenda.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, now visitors' views unrelated to the agenda. Is there anything that anybody has that is not related to the agenda? John?
And, of course, I'm here related to the agenda, just listening to Steve and see if you guys have any questions unrelated to the agenda. Wanted to introduce everybody to Taylor. He's a better half of my operation right now. Taylor Fuller.
Taylor?
And then, I was gonna ask where we're at with the PEDC plan project for ramp improvements. And did that ever come to the board for your oversight? It would seem that this board should have some oversight over that project. I saw the preliminary plans for that last year. I have concerns over its efficacy, considering the plans were just to resurface it. The problem is deterioration internally of the cement. And then the concrete logs that are there on the ramp were never bedded. They float, they rock when you go over them. So I have concerns of if it is surfaced and made rigid, if it's not allowed to rock, it would seem with a heavy load it might increase the chances of that breaking apart. But primarily I just was hoping that would come to this harbor board for review. It would make sense that would be under your mission to keep an eye on boat ramp projects. Anyway.
Yeah, okay, well, I recall the
Keep
last,
your eyes on that.
last time we spoke about this was last year sometime, might have been September. And I haven't heard anything since. I mean, there's nothing, have you seen anything come before you about it from Liz or?
You know, I think she brought it for your review. Gosh, it's been a couple years ago. They're really struggling getting the funding. They got the funding for part of it, and now they've gone out. I see it in the newspaper again as trying to get somebody to do that project. I know this is the second or third time they've put it out for a bid proposal, and nobody seems to have the time to do it. So that I just noticed it in the newspaper yesterday.
Well, maybe it would be good for us to follow up and get in touch with Liz on that and see what she has, because I haven't heard anything about it for quite some time. And the big issue was funding, you know, in the past. We couldn't even go there.
Right.
But that'll be something to, I'm glad you brought that up, John. That's something that we hadn't talked about in quite a while, because it just seemed to got.
But I think the more people that look at that, the more input, the better the end product would be, and so that's, I urge you to, there's a lot of good engineers sitting at that table right there, so.
I don't know if you really want it designed by committee.
Yeah, well, it's better than no design at all, so.
Yeah, I think funding was the key issue there, and if they've got the money now, that
Well,
maybe we should kind of pay
yeah.
attention to that.
Yeah, they, I know they, whatever the plan they have was, the engineering work, I believe, was done by the Forest Service.
So that would be like Larry Dunham or someone like that.
And it would be good to have an idea of potential impact to the users. A lot of vessel owners are dependent on the ramp, and whether the project would take away from its use for an extended period. It would be good for, for some discussion on that.
Okay, does anybody have any comments to make on that? We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see if we can come up with some kind of tentative plans that they have, because I haven't really heard anything about it. It's in the paper, but I didn't notice. Okay, any other visitors' views unrelated to the agenda? So if you want to wait for your views related to the agenda, we could wait until we get to that part of it. That's okay with the board, and we could discuss it while we're covering that topic. Would that be more sensible? Okay, that's okay with you guys. We'll just wait for their comments when we're discussing it, so we don't break the continuity up there. Harbormaster's report.
Okay, it's on page 5. So, going through the staff issues, we're finally back to full staff, so just in time for turning cranes on and off, starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, so that's good. A lot of warm weather projects. We've got to jump on a lot of maintenance issues. Ben and I sat down this last week or so and have come up with a big list, and we're working through prioritizing them. Large part has to do with the weather, things we can jump on if the weather is agreeable. So I've included a lot of those just to kind of keep you in tune with what we're doing. North Harbor, Western Dock is staying on schedule. They're going to start, I talked to Seaver this morning, and they're going to start driving the 24-inch piles out on the Kestrel float, the big cement and T1 float there. So that'll be another big jump forward. Middle Harbor and South are full. We're starting to juggle boats around again because the fleet is up and active. So starting to scratch our heads for where we can tie boats up for sometimes days at a time. Drive down project. We had a pre-construction meeting a couple weeks ago, and Tamco was planning to begin work the first week in February. There's been a little hold up. They ordered their silt boom. I guess it's not ready. This is kind of coming secondhand through Mark. So I'm hoping Jimmy's going to show up this weekend. I know that Rock and Road is getting ready to start hauling rock. So they can't really do much work until we get the boom in place so that it is environmentally friendly. Crane dock widening, the invitation to bid is out. Seems like there's a fair amount of interest. We'll have our pre-bid meeting next week, Wednesday, to see if there's any questions. The little grants that we received last year are moving forward. I ordered all the materials for the work float. We got that all okayed through the feds. And PND has, actually I emailed out to you kind of a little bit of a plan for this launch ramp float, and I have hard copies for you that will pass out once we get there on the agenda.
That's a fish cleaning float.
Yeah, fish cleaning float. You guys can cut and shred on that, and I'll report back to them. And we're working on the budget. Looks pretty good. One thing I'd probably mention is that we're gonna try and run through the assembly the idea of putting in a contingency line in our budget. We ran into some issues when we're working on our budget. We're trying to figure out, kind of a time frame of about 18 months. Like I'm working in January and February all the way through July of 2015, and that is a long time out there, and so there are things that arise that we don't necessarily have to have in the budget for, and so smaller projects. So it becomes quite a hassle through our new codes that we have to go through a pretty formal request process at the assembly level. It requires 3 meetings to okay even small projects like resurfacing the ramps, which, you know, was a $16,000 increase in our maintenance budget. So we talked a little bit about that. I don't know how the assembly will feel about it. We'll see. If we could put in our line item maybe $20,000, like 1% or 2% of our overall budget for things like that. That way we can go to them, get the okay to do something like resurfacing and not have to go because it has to deal with money or with funding through the 3 readings. We can just go through one, get the okay, and hit the ground
So
running.
Glo, is there a limit to the, like, is there a certain amount that requires the assembly, or is it just any amount that comes up?
Anything. I mean,
Outside the budget?
yeah, outside the budget, yeah, anything has to go back to them, which is okay, but it just, like in this case, we have, you know, it's a 6 week or so we're out for ordering. So you add the 6 weeks of going through the assembly and another 6 weeks to order the stuff. Here we're talking, you know, pushing something that could be, you know, an emergency situation out 3 months. So anyway, we're just all kind of playing with different things, and we'll see if that works. If not, we'll just continue on the way we did it this time. So let's see, attended a MAT training and mass casualty response with fellow borough responders last week. If there was ever a, you know, probably a big catastrophe, it would involve the harbor in some form. So we all did a kind of a tabletop on the what if, so which included the ferry going aground down the Narrows here. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. And then looking at future projects, upcoming projects, and trying to get money, ideas on costs for things that could include larger maintenance on our building. We need to replace our harbor roof. We had Joe and Leo's group up there, and we had enough money in our existing budget to replace the section directly over the 2-story section of our building, because it has the Seagull, you know what, 35 years has just worn that thing out, and it is in tough shape. So we're gonna go ahead and replace that, but wait to replace the other 2 wings till we go through this budget.
Time to throw another survival suit up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there plans for putting up like wires or something to keep birds off, or in the future?
Yeah, I've talked about that. It's not a very steep roof, so.
So is the guano like
Eating a
extra
hole right through.
acidic?
It's amazing, yeah. 35 years the building is 35 years old. Anyway. We're gonna try and budget for an additional camera in the drive-down facility area. Talk about containment areas for the 13-yard dumpsters. We're having issues with, you know, guys will throw their 5-gallon buckets, you know, used waste oil buckets in there, and it ends up coming out the end, and we're having little drainage issues. So the garbage guys and Ben have been dreaming of some kind of a containment thing that we could slide those 13-yarders into, have a little bit of grading over the top, something that then it would come down and we could filter and try and just be a little bit more environmentally friendly. And we have a lot of requests over the last, you know, dozen years for a kayak float. So maybe in amongst all of this, we can build some kind of a platform that's, you know, we can float in the summertime and for those people. So those are kind of the future things we're looking at right now. And athlete activity starting to ramp up. That's it.
Anybody have any questions for the Glo?
The South Harbor ramp resurfacing? What, you're gonna replace the fiber grate on
Well,
that, or?
what we've decided to do is kind of model them after the 85-foot ramps, where grading completely covers the entire surface, and instead of them going horizontally, we'll go vertically. So we'll
Okay.
switch them all. So we need to order more grading to accomplish that. And then, once we get, we'll have to manipulate the existing ramp a little bit, but once we get those set in, then we've also purchased flat bar to build cleats on top of that. So, because they are, being 64 feet, they're pretty drastic degree there. So we do feel like we need cleats, so we'll just attach those after. So it's something that Ben and the maintenance crew are doing, so we're doing it in-house, but we went directly to the manufacturers, so we got good price.
Okay. Well, something Kurt and I had been talking about is the bump at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
With adding that height, it makes a big spot, and there's, oil gets spilled there because it bumps all the stuff out of the cart.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And just having a little, in-between ramp of,
Yeah.
could be wood or you
Something
or
we could
something.
put in at the summertime and take out in the wintertime.
Well, I think it just, bolt on the bottom of the ramp.
Okay,
you know.
yeah.
One thing that I noticed is it'd be nice to have sides on the ramps to keep snow and ice from blowing in. I mean, I just about took a spill in the brand new South Harbor, or the middle ramp, just because right at the bottom there is a lot of condensation or something, and it was just solid ice because there wasn't sides. And then the new ramp, it's got just those tin sides on it. It'd be really nice to be able to enclose. I think it would
Yeah, we've talked about
keep
that
keep
too,
that
yeah.
stuff off there, keep it less
I
slippery.
wonder if that would build up the frost. Because I noticed in the middle harbor, where the sun hits it, it melts off pretty quick, and it was just like frosty kind of thing this past week. Yeah, so it might.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens
Yeah.
with this middle. But
Yeah,
I
we'll see the-
went over and checked the North Harbor with the brand new closed ramp, and there wasn't any, because I think what there is moisture when when the harbor starts smoking it right
Right.
down at the bottom of the ramp. It was just solid ice, and it's got good grading on it, but it was really slippery.
Right.
So I was thinking maybe that would keep it off there, and snow wouldn't blow in, or I don't know.
Well, it might trap the snow, I guess, kind
One of the
out
nice
there,
things about this
see what
new
happens.
North Harbor, the roof line extends out past the
Yeah.
end, so that'll be real nice. It'll protect the snow from coming down right and binding up the bottom of the ramp.
Yeah,
so.
there's a lot more
Yeah,
thought gone into
okay.
these newer ramps. Okay, anybody else have any questions about the report? Okay, unfinished business, the fish cleaning float from P&D, design review.
Take one of these and pass that around. I'll send some this way. This is just hot off the press. I sent it to you in your on your computer. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. This is just a real basic. It's similar to what the North Harbor is designed. I had their boys look at it, and initially some things really jumped out at us. That the fish cleaning tables are again at the end, which is right there where we're having trouble with the sea lions. So, I'm thinking about I'd like them better served maybe right in the middle. I know Mike had brought us pictures, I think it was of Prince of Wales.
Thorn
or
Bay.
something. Thorn
Thorn
Bay,
Bay
where
had
they're
one.
in the middle, and then later we're
Craig
able
was,
to
yeah.
come over and put a roof over the top, which looked like a pretty good thing. And so, one thing that we noticed is that the fiberglass grating, if you go from page 1 to page 3, it's just been okay. So while you wash all the guck, and it'll just sit on the right on top of the flotation boards. I don't know if that's soon. So anyway, so we'll work on that. But I just wanted to throw this at you if you see anything or if you've been thinking about.
Yeah, I was sort of, what about, if you kept the tables at the end of this float,
And you could do whatever you want with a cover or whatever, however you want to make it. But the thing about it is, I mean, if you think about the creature that you're trying to avoid, I mean, he's just focused on those fish, you know. And so, what about like a 4 foot or 5 foot, just on the end, right around, kind of wrap around the end, chain link fence that they can't jump through? They're not going to jump up in the middle part of the float and hump themselves over there and be a problem.
Sure.
But right there where the fish are, they want to fight whoever's got the fish, or they want to kill them and get the fish. So if we put like a, you know, like a horseshoe, like 4 foot chain link fence around the end of the float,
Or maybe something they couldn't see through. I don't know if that would.
that might work too. Something that they wouldn't be able to see. They'd be able to see the chain link and know they can't get through it. But I mean, they're not smart, but they're not idiots either. But you know, something that protects the people while they're dealing with the fish, because that's when the people are going to be most vulnerable. They're focused on the fish. They're not focused on the sea lion, and the sea lion can snatch somebody.
Yeah, that might work. You know, on something like this, you're really going to have boats laying along the long side rather than the end, because
Well, I was thinking you could come back, you know, come back to where that, you know, the planks start there basically. I mean, you don't have to take up a whole bunch of space in terms of where they could tie up, because you're gonna restrict what you can getting on and off the float if you put a chain link fence there, because the people won't be able to get through it too. But it's just a place where they can sort of deal with their fish in relative security, and the fence would protect them. They could come into the middle part of the float or anywhere close to it and take their fish off and go over there. And then their boats would be there too. I mean, that would be a sort of a blocking tool for the, I mean, for the sea lions. Wouldn't jump over the boats, but they would be there. And then they go over to the, you know, and they take their fish off the boat and go over to the chain link fenced area where the sea lions just can't get to them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
makes sense.
I mean, it's just something that popped into my head in terms of
Exactly.
trying to.
I had the same thought when I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like the idea that they're on the end of the floats rather than
Yeah.
in the middle, because you got people packing fish every which direction and dealing with fish all around. I mean,
Yeah,
all
that's
And
around.
it opens up the
True.
rest of the float for
That's
movement up the
true,
float.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, okay.
It does. So,
And you
I
can
mean,
still
and
put a
this would
cover
be a
as well.
really pretty
You can cover it if you want.
inexpensive
Yeah.
way of dealing with sea
Yeah,
lions and
that's a good
still
point.
provide people with a
Well, and
the
it's
protection
something
they
that we
need.
can put up, and you know, they're
yeah
even
in-house.
portable.
And it
Where
wouldn't
was,
be-
where was the display?
Yeah,
setup gonna be?
well, that was in the corner originally because he liked the background of the harbor and not the parking lot too. So that's
That would work good.
you know. So we
Kurt?
c-
I was gonna say, Mike, 'cause this isn't hard and fast, these tables, you know, they can always just be moved in 4 feet from the edge too, you know, so they can get around both sides. You can still put your thing up in the back and still hang your fish on it. But, you know, like, keep it on the end. But just move your tables in 4 feet from, so you could work on both sides of the table maybe.
Well, you could work on both sides of the table if you had that chain link fence around there so they
Think
couldn't
that's
jump
like
up
a
and
foot
grab
and
you
a
by the
half or
butt.
something Foot and a half between the table now and where your fence would be.
Mm-hmm.
we
Maybe not
will
foot
do
and a
the
half or something,
attaching
3
of the tables.
Yeah, you know, it can all come later, it's not hard and fast.
Other than that, though, the looks like a pretty workable.
Yeah,
Float.
nice. Well, it's just nice because it's twice as big
So
as what we have.
you're concerned about Guri floating through and hanging up on the
Yeah.
under. What that needs to be addressed. Then.
Yeah.
It
You
really
could put a
does.
sheet underneath there with the slope they could rinse out, or
Well, yeah, if you look at the page, I mean, that's
a lot
what
of
we
framing
paid.
under there.
Yeah,
That's where the concrete
So,
is nice.
why
You
not-
just hose it off.
Yeah, have a concrete 2 inches or whatever it takes, or something to seal it
and not
And-
put
and
grading in.
with a little bit of an angle, not grading, and then wash it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that grading in them.
A lot of the guts
you're
just
not-
kinda hang over that grating.
It's
Oh,
gotta be
yeah,
a
it
mess.
is.
Supposed to take the guts out to the middle.
And people get their high heels stuck in
Right.
that. Yeah.
Still
I can
a-
see it being a mess. Even if you're real careful, you're gonna
That's
drop
correct.
Oh,
stuff
yeah, it's
on the
gonna be all
ground.
flies
Yeah.
all over it. And
Yeah.
So concrete seemed to work really well on the ones we have. They could just hose them off, and you know, if it could, even just on the end there, where the tables
You know,
are.
possibly diamond plate or kind of thing. I mean, that's easy to clean, it's kind of slippery, but not.
What about that fiberglass covering that's on the rest of the float that's coming out here?
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
good
that
idea.
stuff's pretty
Sure.
nice.
Good match.
It's like UHMW or something, a sheet of it,
Yeah.
It's got
The
a rough surface
grate.
on it.
or with a grit on it, so it's not slippery.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
you
stuff
start
is-
introducing
it's already there.
concrete to this, you got a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that stuff works really well on the.
Yeah, that's a
like,
good one,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
on the
So,
rest
okay,
of
well,
the
that gives
float.
us some ideas, and this is, like I said, just right off the,
Well, it'll give us time, looking at it, and maybe in the future you come up with ideas and go in and talk to Glo about it. And
yeah, we'll probably try and get this one going, because we gotta spend the money by July 1, so, to get this thing out and built, so probably be working on this hot and heavy in the next couple weeks and try and get it out for bid. So,
Okay, anything else on the fish cleaning float? Okay, so hearing none, we'll get down to new business, and we're gonna talk about Steve Berry's Scout Bay lease proposal to put in a portable type building that you saw pictures of, that'll be used for putting vessels in to clean paint, do fiberglass work or whatever in an enclosed environment.
So it's part of the, city, process to go through this board, go through planning and zoning before it gets to the assembly for, the final say, so. Anyways, now's the chance to ask John, or to ask Steve and questions and what you think of it, and.
Well, I'm glad that both John and Steve are here, because the big issue is that we don't wanna two-block ourselves or either one of the lease, operations gonna be going on out there. So that was kind of the question I had, is this gonna preempt any other work that is already in progress, or is it better to move that building to the corner, or, that's why I was curious as to how John and Steve, if they'd worked together on this, or had any ideas about if it's gonna work or not. So, Steve?
Yeah, I've definitely, we've both been talking about it ever since I started thinking about this, a year and a half or 2 years ago. Talked to them quite a bit about it, mainly because, I stay in the morning working on my boat, so. It's gotta be workable for him to get boats in and out where he's at, and doable for me to get boats into the building, and, that's why I asked for, I think I requested a 50 to 60 spot. And the building's gonna be only big enough for one. I put 45 foot, I'd prefer them to be 40 foot, but, if I say a 40 foot, then somebody comes over, well, I can't get my building now, so I kinda keep jumping around on the size, but I don't wanna get into anything bigger than that.
So I know there was some concern from the fire department. We heard a little bit of stuff. They've got some issues with the building there that they use for drills. And then there is on the inside of that, between that tower and the fire hall, they do drills with, live firefighting stuff. And I don't know if that would be an issue with your building right there. It's not real close, but that would be something to consider.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that, and it shouldn't be a issue. It's just a matter of how close you're gonna get their fire to the building.
They should be able to conduct themselves appropriately.
If they,
Well, one issue that I heard was that there is a storage tank underground right there that has the water that they use for testing their pumps. And we have to find out where that is exactly in accordance to where you're planning on, because they can't have any weight on that tank. So I'm not even sure where it's at, but it's somewhere along that edge of that, where the tower is.
Isn't it between the tower and the fire hall?
I think so.
I think that's what
Yeah,
Doug
we
said.
just have to make sure that that's
Yeah.
not gonna get, driven over with a boat on a trailer or something, and, cause it's an old, fuel tank or something from the fuel dock, the old fuel dock, and they use it for transferring water through testing their pumps, so.
When I measured everything out, I just went and looked at the survey markers where my understanding, which is just my understanding, where the property in between them and where your guys' property starts, so I think that'd be, and I expect, plan on putting that building 10 to 15 feet south of that line, so that if I had to have people parking or anything, you know, any other kind of storage, I would have that space, a buffer zone between them and the building. So.
Does anybody have any,
I have a question
yeah,
to John. It looks like this laps the lease that you've got. How does that,
I see no conflict.
There's no conflict
problem.
there. So this building, how wide would it be?
I haven't, probably about 35 foot.
That includes the support,
That includes the
van
bases, yeah.
supports?
Yeah. Well, no, in between the vans would be 35 feet. I
Oh.
figure I need about that much.
And then there's-
Where, to get around the boat on the inside and
So you'd be taking up pretty much that whole 50 foot?
pretty much.
Yeah.
Which way would the building, which way would it go?
John,
go ahead.
how wide is this, your lease there? The crosshatch part?
Like this.
I used to know those numbers.
8,500 square feet.
It looks like it is right there,
I believe
71.
it's
Isn't that the
Okay.
width
pretty
right
close
there?
to 200 feet.
So this is not really proportional. If that's 200, if that's,
That would be,
so it's really more like this. Right in here somewhere.
60, could be, yeah.
I was just thinking about that dead corner there, but,
Yeah, that would not significantly hamper any of my
Okay.
use of the property
Okay.
to have that there.
yeah,
I typically go in at an angle,
okay,
and
I see,
so
yeah,
that wouldn't be a problem.
yeah.
What
Good.
about power? What kind of power is, I mean, you have power on that line on the
Yeah.
edge, right?
Yes.
So is Steve gonna need power?
If somebody's gonna work on the
Probably.
boat, they're gonna need
Yeah.
power.
I would think so.
We've
So
got
what's
for
your
use
plan
that.
for power?
Power I'd run from, there's one right on the corner of the one they already put in.
Corner of his?
Run a power line from there over to where my.
Is that adequate to run like a welder or that kind of thing?
Maybe not a welder, it is a 223 phase, and at the point that that happens, then I would have to run something underground.
A little bit different, I see.
It's a 100 amp service, so it would be plenty for.
Plenty.
Okay,
Yeah.
it'd be plenty, yeah.
When Joe put that out there, he took all the spares from the South Harbor and used them
Sorry.
out there. So we don't have any spares for our South Harbor, so so it's essentially exact same as what
So
we
that'd
have
be
in the harbor.
designated for this new project, one of those. There's more than one. Or is
Yeah, there is more
Yeah,
than one.
there's-
Is there more than one of those
Yeah.
services?
Yes, yeah,
So
there's actually 4 of them there.
Yeah, okay.
And so, it'd be practical for Steve to have
One
one
of them,
entire
yeah.
service with its own meter.
What about,
That's all established right there.
what about water
Phone
or
call.
other sewage or anything like that? You're not gonna need any of that?
No, he's got a head up on his property, public toilet, and all this other stuff. I figure in the years to come, you guys are gonna be making changes on that property, whether you put in a dock system or
Wash down or
wash
whatever,
down
right?
and all that, so I can get by, without a sewer and water,
Okay, the fire hall does have sewer and water,
yeah.
so, it's right there, so it might be easier for us to, in the future, anyway. But I was just wondering if you were gonna be needing something like that.
No. And one of the containers that I have access to, a 20-footer does have a toilet and a shower in it, and it's not my intent to dig a sewer line and plug it in until it's needed, or until you guys figure out where you wanna go with the rest of the property, because having a portable building, also, if things change, you may say, well, you're gonna be better suited over there than you are right here.
Would it be possible to put a water line in somehow or somewhere, from someplace out there? Is there any water close by?
Well, the
Firehouse.
Firehouse got the, yeah.
That could be serviced there? I think water's fairly important. I think it's more important than sewer, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
One, you have to have the other.
for a real
Insurance.
fast fire, or if
Yeah.
somebody gets something in their eyes, they can wash it out with water right away and that kind of thing, you know, it's sort of a safety deal. For me anyway, it would be having water there. would
Well, I'd
be-
have some sort of water there for drinking and just what you're saying.
There you go,
sanding.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
you have to wet sand, but it's not, it does, you know, it
Yeah.
could be a couple drums sitting on, you know,
Okay.
just enough to,
Okay.
Yeah, or a hose to sort it out.
yeah, something that.
Steve, I see on your lease you're requesting a 10-year term.
And
Is there any latitude in that, or?
Oh, yeah, I put that down there just because if I go ahead and invest all this, you know, I might be taking out a 10-year loan, or I don't want, you know, I'd hate to set something up and in 5 years, I mean, hell, I don't even know if I'll be around in 10 years.
None of us do. Well, maybe. Some of us are in the same boat.
Or be able to remember what I'm doing.
Right.
I think one of the things we talked to John about years ago was the length of the term. I mean, the city didn't want to tie that property up unless, you know, in case 5 years from now there's a better use for the property, or, you know,
Sure.
that
And I don't have a
language.
problem with it being
I was
5
just
years.
curious.
Figured go for as much as I could go for.
Yeah, and it's understandable, you'd wanna have some sort of guarantee, you wouldn't be putting this money into a building and then, like, next year have it.
Next year.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
And,
Absolutely.
and I'd be all for some sort of a, you know, something that works for you, that would definitely give us an out down the road.
I can't recall off the top of my head the lease, like with Piston and Rudder or Whitethorn, Ace Electronics, for instance. I'm not sure if those are annual. It seems to me like they are an annual lease, but I might be wrong.
It's an annual lease, but we revisit it every 5 years.
Okay, so that is okay.
They
Thought
pay
we were
annually,
to
but
read it.
it's,
Yeah, but, and I think they're, am I saying 50 years? I mean, that's kind of like
Could
a,
be. I'm gonna-
I know Piston and Rudders was, I'm not Piston and Rudder, Petros was 99.
And John, your current lease out there grandfathers in 2016, is this still?
I know I have a 5-year lease,
Five.
and it would be, I think that's correct, yeah.
I mean, that's just reading off
That was on,
the
yeah.
lease agreement.
yeah, well,
So have you had a chance to look through John's? Cause we spent a lot of time on him, and I feel really good about what has happened there, especially when we revisited it, last year or the year before, and the best practice policies and things like that.
Impact statement.
Mhm.
Environmental impact.
And your insurance, but also, do you propose to, like, John has a barrier that he's put down and then put a surface over that, I think that is a big, a valuable thing for us to be confident that if there is, you know, we can contain any issue or something like that.
Right, and that's, yeah, I would definitely have contain and change it out pretty regular. For what I, you know, and I can explain a few things here, because I know Kathy was questioning, I put in there eventual building, and then I put eventual, because I didn't know how long all this stuff was gonna take. It's
Sure.
probably a poor choice of words, because, you know, I'd like to get it going.
Yeah, and-
Whenever I find out if I can do it, you know, with all the hoops I gotta jump through, survey and stuff like that, if I have to have it surveyed at the end, and, but whenever I can do it, I would start placing things in there and getting containers, that's where I go. The other one is, would I be, leasing it out, I think she asked me, or sublet space to others, and the answer would be yes, you know, for other, if I don't have a boat to paint, and somebody wants to go in there next winter and wood boat and change all their decks or do work on the side, then they can rent it out by the day, week, or month. Or if somebody wanted to do fiberglass, they could do that. Basically, I'd be managing and maintaining, making sure
You'd be the responsible party.
that nobody's, spilling anything.
Okay.
You know, I started out painting cars a long time ago, back in the '70s with my father, and I saw all the EPA stuff coming through California back then, so I kind of, you gotta keep one eye over your shoulder, because I know once it starts happening, and, you know, the basket's wide open pretty much. But, you gotta be thinking about it. You know, just like you guys are thinking about what's gonna happen with bottom gate on the, greenways and the grid on this thing here. Eventually, something's gonna come up.
Well,
So-
do you remember when the city did the environmental analysis, or maybe John would know, did it include that area that he's proposing to lease?
The city did,
Didn't they do a little drilling out there? and a little-
did sampling of the entire terminal,
The entire section,
yeah.
yeah, so.
Paradoxically, they missed my lease entirely. But everywhere else they did, but, just by a few feet. But there is a baseline that the city did with, the environmental company out of Juneau. I forgot the name.
I can't remember, but any specifics, but I remember going through that. It was sampled, so we knew what was there when we, especially now that we own it. And before we started leasing it, it gives you a baseline with the.
Yeah, I thought there
Like-
was, it was just a question I thought I'd bring up. But
I'm sure it's on file downstairs somewhere.
So what we're looking for is just like, is this something that we want to recommend it to the assembly, that maybe this is a good way to go? Go ahead and lease some more property and kind of follow the same lease agreement that we have with John, so the same time frame maybe, and if that works for Steve, we could go that way.
Have you run this by Liz Cabrera at all?
You mean for,
Just for plans that
Economic
EDC might have had?
she knows that I've got it in the works, I've talked to her about it, more so about what kind of monies were available, or if there was grants or loans. But- And I asked,
Primarily, the PEDC, you know, has been concentrating more on the ramp and, you know, the wash down, which is closer over to the state. We haven't really, you know, the harbor has conceptual drawings for actually a harbor out there, extending the breakwater, backfilling, you know, to create twice as much flat land out there. So there's a lot of conceptual things out there, but most of it comes down to funding and priority.
I don't see anything happening in the next 5 to 10 years, really.
You know,
Nothing big, major.
who knows, yeah.
Keep giving oil money away. But, one thing, have you talked to Joe Nelson about, I know that we talked about power a little bit earlier, just wondering if that corner outlet or pedestal you're talking about getting power from, just to see if there's enough amperage there, whatever you call it, you could put a conduit in over to your shop, so you're not, don't have cords
I
strung
haven't
across.
talked to him about a conduit.
Yeah. Just, I mean, cause
Yeah.
the city went and put in
Right.
that power for, I think they paid for it reluctantly, but they did it, Power and Light did it, so. Still
Last year, when I originally was thinking about it, I did go talking to Leo to find out what planning and zoning might have to say about it. He said personally he didn't have any problems with it as long as the fire marshal in Juneau signed off on it. And the fire marshal in Juneau, I lost his card, but he signed off on all the stuff in Wrangell, and it's the same deal with the only question they would have is snow load, which was, I think, the one you asked about or something, that I'd have to get a certificate which comes with all these, because you have to pay $1,500 and you get the certificate that says.
Okay.
Which way are you proposing to put this on? This way?
Facing,
Okay.
Um,
So you-
The water.
got it. So John, you don't have any problem with that kind of blocking that corner?
No.
Okay.
Because, the radius of the corner there, I usually approach that at an angle,
Okay.
and I can still turn
Oh, you
into
can.
that. And
Okay.
it's a relatively undesirable area of my lease anyway, and so I wouldn't have any conflict with it. There'd be no blockage of my property.
one of the reasons I wanted to get this spot, which if things change, but it's backed up against those trees, and so,
Right.
because I've over the past year, whenever the wind's blowing real hard, I go down and watch and look, and
Okay.
I've seen enough tarps and stuff to know that it gets pretty good windage down there. That's probably the best spot. The only better spot would be over a little bit further in that corner maybe, but I think,
Nothing, you could sublease it.
Yeah, I'd like to enforce what Steve said there. Just a distance of 100 feet is a night and day difference. That corner is very well protected from the prevailing winds. If you go on the other side of that storage, of the building that's been there, it's totally
Different.
less desirable. Yeah, very windy.
So, how do you guys want to go about this? Do you want to recommend that we go forward with this and let the assembly review it and let planning and zoning look at it and see what they think? Personally, I think it's a good direction to go. Yeah, Jeff?
I don't have any problems with it as long as John is agreeable to that location, that it doesn't lock up his corner. That was my concern.
Kathy has given you direction to review the application and make comment relevant to our departments as well as me, services and needs. Written comment should be submitted to Leo by the first week of March,
So it
Yeah.
should happen fairly quickly.
yeah, we'll put
I
something
would,
together.
Do we need a motion, or do we just?
I believe
I
so.
think so. Jeff?
I don't even know if it's our responsibility. It seems to me that, that the fire marshal would want water in there. I don't know. I don't know that. But that's just something that,
That should be something Leo should be able to do.
but that's what I mean. I think that down the line, you're gonna find out what
that's
they
why I
require of
figure
you.
this is the first step.
This is
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Planning and
Then
zoning
I'm
will
sure there's gonna be
probably.
hiccups along the way.
Water's right. Water's not far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have water at each electrical, kind of like a harbor hook up there, just for whoever leases a
Go to
spot,
Wrangell. Got all that stuff.
Okay, so maybe we should, someone should make a motion to forward this on to PN&D, I mean, not PN&D, but the P&Z and the assembly afterwards to go ahead and, I don't know, whatever.
Is everyone in support then?
See no conflicts.
Yeah, as long as there's no conflicts with John's, like Jeff was saying, I totally think this is a good
Yeah,
thing.
it's exactly what I'd like to see out there. So.
Yeah, I think that's what right now is good for. You know,
I'm more
utilize that
concerned
space.
about, you get more activity out there, and the whole ramp thing is still a big question mark, and
Well, this will help that.
Yeah,
the ramp.
Will you build it
Sure.
when they come? or-
Yeah, well, I guess
When they come, then you
it
build it.
justify, yeah, maybe, so.
Yeah.
and I wouldn't. I actually have been thinking about going and talking to Larry Dunham about the design that he did for the Banana Point and the other ramp. He did some work on both of those, and see what he's thinking, just with the questions that John had about the stability of it and whether it needs to be all tore up and bedded and or whatever. But he should know. I mean, he's the guy.
He's leaving in a year, retiring, so.
Is he?
It's interesting to see what's happened out there with very little from the city, how there's a lot going on out there.
Yeah.
Really applaud that, so.
So, somebody want to make a motion to support this and pass it on to planning and zoning?
Yeah, I guess I'll move that we consolidate our support in writing with any concerns and forward it on to
Kathy.
the assembly or whoever.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of supporting this project, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Good deal.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Get back to work, you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, John.
So, John, what's the capacity of this young man?
What's that?
What's the capacity of this, your new helper?
I mean, how much can he lift?
Can he hear?
Is he taking over?
Well, he's taking over my knees and
Oh, the
and
gopher
your back.
stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I asked them how much came left. That's the first question I
That's
asked.
the grain of the fleet out there.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is your new owner operator.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is the drive-down facility design, phase 2.
I just brought this to
Thank you.
your attention when, Somerville was down here and we went through the pre-construction meeting and realizing there wasn't a lot of hang-ups and, things seemed to go pretty smoothly and we're fairly confident with, all of the items listed on the first phase. As we all know, we came in under budget, or we came under the estimate, I guess engineer's estimate, so there's 1.9 million technically left, off of the last grant. And, if you remember when we were going through the design stages, we talked a little bit about what the upland work is going on up there, and if we were to ever be able to afford a bulkhead, that there would be some work that would have to be removed, you know, in order to move forward with phase 2. So I'm just bringing it to you. The time is now to talk to the assembly about if they'd like to move forward with some of this or with this work. Because we would be again putting fill in and then having to remove it in order to put any type of bulkhead in. So just got some real preliminary numbers here, got a little conceptual design of what we could afford for the money that's there. So I am bringing it to you to see if you want to talk to the assembly about this or what?
How much money will we have left over after the drive down's completed?
1.9.
1.9.
And this project is gonna cost
1.8.
8.
But that's a full project, that's not just.
No, that is what you see right here. The full project is 5.6.
No,
Phase 2
no, I
is
mean the
5.6.
addition. But remember when we were doing our cutting on that, we changed the shot rock classification under there, and isn't that what we're talking about?
Yes, that's what we're
Changing back to
talking,
so we can
yes.
drive a sheet pile through.
Yes, yes.
What does that number reflect?
You know, I don't know that number.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do it, you won't put
In a
it
meeting,
there.
I'll
So
put it
if you're not going to do it, you have to do the way it's designed. If you're gonna do this, then you won't put that there. You'll drive piling and fill around it. So you'll either leave a gaping hole or you won't, you have to do one or the other. You either have to build this or you do what we've got designed and come back to it at a later point.
What was the issue again? We shaved
So-
off some money to have a lower grade of rock put there?
Well, I thought we put in a bigger type of rock, so
We
you
put
could
in a
not
higher
drive
grade.
sheet
Yeah.
piling through it, and if we just changed that
Right.
grading, we could drive sheet piling through it.
Right,
Is
and
what I
that's-
understood.
And that's what we're talking about.
But I
is
mean, that cost differential wasn't 1.8, it was a couple $100,000, wasn't it?
So you're talking about in that area where this is designed to go, put smaller rock in it, you could drive through, we
Well,
don't
that's-
sure if you don't.
Because I thought when we were shaving our budget, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought that we had changed that rock classification to larger
No.
rock.
I think we talked about
We talked
the
about it,
difference
but we
in
didn't.
cost of changing the rock, but you can't, you leave that smaller rock as a,
Slope.
As a slope,
yeah, it won't,
hold.
no, it has to be the bigger rock if you're gonna leave it as a slope.
Yeah, and
So our
And I
change
thought
was,
we were talking rock behind the riprap.
the fill
Not
rock.
the riprap, which is the face riprap. I thought we were talking this grade of rock back in here where the piling would actually be going. But, you know, maybe I'm,
We better find out.
I
Out
think
to
you're
lunch here.
right, Mike, that was at that meeting, I think we did talk about what the cost would be different if we did do it, but we didn't ever,
no,
because the price was gonna be so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a conversation piece, I think.
Yeah. So back to, you know, what's before us is they're getting ready to fill, they're getting ready to start the first phase of this project. Do we want to go to the assembly with this as a possibility, as a change order? Do you want to shelve this project? We have 3 years to spend this money. Do you want to come back and rebid this? I mean, these are all the things I'm just throwing out on the table for you to think about. But the time is we gotta, if we're gonna go forth with this as a possible change order, we have to do it pretty quickly.
Could you change order this big a bite?
Well, that's up to the assembly. I mean, I
You want me
imagine.
to tell you
you'd
guys what the
probably-
manager's position is on this and how I feel about it? Not that
Sure.
I'm one person,
Yeah,
is all in
yeah.
the assembly, but the manager feels like the money should be held on to till all the projects are complete, which isn't what the harbor staff is asking you guys to do. They want you to approve this to go forward with it now, which I think is a wonderful idea. It would access bait shed storage for this fill, which, I suppose you could do it in the future to do that as well, since we have the place behind Jerry Whitethorns and Weekons and Piston and Rudder. But also looking at other capital projects around the city that have been kind of, when we set up the capital projects list to get the funding, when this was done, it was not a big debate, but a debate about what's project number one, the police station or the harbors. And the assembly at that time, which Chevy Assembly has a different opinion, but my opinion is still that the police station is the most important project before us now. And just like the leftover money from the fire hall, we reappropriated it to the police station. And I would like to see, since in my opinion, the harbor's got a lot of money recently, like you're gonna get the crane dock widening, you're gonna get a drive down dock, you got a brand new North Harbor, all state granted. And if it's doable, and it sounds like from discussions with the people in the legislature and our lobbyists, that this could potentially be reappropriated towards the police station. So I'm just telling you, that's my, the city manager's position on it. And, I'm a harbor user and I support the fishing industry, but I think this building we're sitting in here is in pretty high priority. So that's just my opinion. I don't know what Kurt thinks about it, but I just, I've mentioned it to Glow the other day, and so I don't know if you'll get the assembly to say, next meeting, go ahead, and go forward with this.
What's the vulnerability to reappropriate that back up to state level and have it come back? I mean, is it
Nothing
vulnerable
if
to
you wait
being
for Stedman
snatched?
to be our senator again. I don't think. We're kind of leery of it doing it this session when Dennis Egan's our senator.
What's the likelihood, Mark, of it happening? Because it's 1.8 this year, it's 2.5 next year, it's 3 million, probably 3.5 million before we get a chance to spend the money, if you go 3 years with this money. That's just the way projects work.
The sunset too, is
Yeah.
it feasible to do this?
Well,
in a
you can
3-year
use
timeframe?
my understanding is you can spend the head tax money first. Use that section of the grant first, it's gone, so we don't have to worry about that sunsetting out this July or whatever it is.
We have 3 years on this one.
3 years currently from this grant.
Yeah, it'll be
that's left.
2017.
Yeah,
Is
so,
when you have to use
I'm
it.
just telling you, that's what you might be discussing when you bring this to the assembly.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, I was more in favor of putting this on the corner, but that's regardless of the funding that would go to this project. But the part that I'm worried about is if we do lose the availability of storage at the Reed dock, all that stuff has to go somewhere, and we don't have room. I mean, we're too blocked as far as storage for bait sheds. And this fill is perfect for storage, and that would give us the access to it. And that's where I think this is like crucial to I mean, it's part of the big project plan in the first place, but I'd be willing to not gamble the money going back to the legislature just because of, like, if the senator that we have now and the state of funding that we have in the legislature isn't very good. And that money, because it's not gonna go from public safety to public safety, it's gonna go from public harbors to public safety, which is I don't know how that would go I don't know how that would change hands
Stays
in the
within the
legislature.
district, when it gets reappropriated, it goes back up and the legislature makes a decision on it, and that's how it happens.
So
Can't
I'd be
be
more inclined to get a better feel from the legislators as far as, can they give us at least a semi-guarantee that it would come back? Because it'd be a heck of a loss just on a gamble to send it back up to them and have them go, well, gee, we need to put some more money at the ferries or whatever. And I don't know, I just think it's a gamble, and I don't really want to gamble unless they get some support from the legislature. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just on the harbor board, and it's not my decision ultimately. But being on the harbor board, I'm in favor of pursuing this project on a timely matter. That's the way I put it from here.
That was my earlier point. It's not gonna be any cheaper than that now.
And the money's in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an important
And this was my idea
aspect to
because-
the,
I mean, you might as well know that right up.
This is the west wall.
This west wall was my idea. I wanted this
But-
long before I wanted the drive down.
But as a
So, okay, so I'm a
taxpayer,
little biased.
I'm real interested in what Mark's saying, but as a harbor board person, I think I have to go with Jeff. But it's an assembly decision to, these things you're
Add up
talking
the
about,
money that
and
has been
wait.
Spent in the harbor,
What's that?
add up them, I'm not certain.
Oh, there's no doubt about
Add up the money
that.
that's been spent in the harbor and look at the condition of this building. and
Yeah, no,
make a rational decision.
I'm totally on board with what you're saying, but there are these unknown risks. It seems like it's an assembly decision ultimately. Everything we do
Yeah,
is.
right.
I know.
But
It is.
But if we're gonna hang on to it, I like this.
I do too.
And I don't know what other, maybe some other, I don't know what other things we can even do with that money at this point. But I see what you're saying. I just don't know that this is my place to stand up for Joe taxpayer.
Well, you're representing the harbor now. so-
As a harbor board decision, this looks pretty good, a good use of the,
And I think those guys jogging off the crane dock, for hours waiting to
yeah.
load their.
The drive down's gonna alleviate a lot of
We're
that in
gonna
the
have a
future.
180 by 65 foot float there next Christmas, so.
Yeah, but, so I guess,
Just thought I'd come and give you my opinion.
Well, we appreciate it.
Well, and
yeah, it's
I
just-
really appreciate that, and and I just had to bring it to you now, because now's the time to have this discussion with the assembly to say, if we wanna save a little bit of money here, then we can, we're feeling good about the contingency factor, back to what the managers, was concerned about. We've got built-in contingency to the existing project of 5%, so, we've got $500,000 sitting there towards the what-if factor of the drive down. And so I don't think that we're gonna have any cost overruns to chip away at this 1.8, but you never know. I mean, some could happen, but right now they're building essentially the exact same thing down in Ketchikan, and so ours is just going right to the same manufacturer, the same contractors, gonna put it in, and
yeah, how to
Do you have the,
how to go about
the
it.
blueprints for the drive down there? Is that the?
And Mike,
Eh?
they're just, the
Just
board,
wanna
just
take a
for,
look at that.
it wasn't any of the discussions that have been had about the appropriation of this money towards the different project, like the police station, that isn't gonna be addressed to the legislature this session.
okay, yeah.
So it's not like, just.
But from
just
our point
because
of view,
Do it faster, because it's, you got the money in hand.
well, they're gonna start on this bill, and it's
Right.
important
Yeah.
to make the decision. The assembly's gonna have to make the decision before, it goes back.
Yeah.
So the practical usage of it is, for bait shed storage, there was talk of having it as like a park area, a while back, as far as the upland stuff.
I
That's
don't
maybe
remember
not
that.
something
I know
that-
by Dock Street, there was gonna be a park, wasn't
I just, right now, we're limited to what we can put in there, because again, we have a 17-foot, bridge here. So, if anything wider than 16, 17 feet is going to be relocated to that, it'll have to come via the highway, which means anything bigger than can be transported down has to get a DOT permit and that kind of stuff. And so that for me is really attractive of having that dock there, that we could bury herring pounds, we could put bait houses that can't come up that that transfer bridge.
How high-
And keep them on the,
How high are the railings on that?
That's the
On the ramp?
yeah, the ramp 17, so,
How high are the railings?
Like 10.
10 feet, 12 feet, something,
On the ramp?
yeah.
Above the grade of the road?
Yeah,
You see, remember the Ock Bay,
Yeah.
I don't
the
remember.
photos on the.
Oh,
title?
because of the
It's got
pressure.
a strength, it's a, it's a.
I get you.
Restriction, you have a restriction coming up
I
on
get you.
the,
Okay, Kurt,
on the,
It does.
I don't know.
the lifting mechanism.
Kurt, did you have something?
Restriction.
So this is just the engineer's preliminary estimate,
yeah.
so it could come in lower. That's
Good.
question one.
Well, and there is, again, the contingencies at 10%, in there, so, and, yeah.
Question two is, does this have to go out as a separate bid, or does Martinson just automatically get this one?
That's a decision the assembly has to mull over and make. I don't know if he'd have to go to the lawyer to say, and ask the thing.
Yeah.
There's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm sure you may get a question from the second bid, but, the reality of why we can even afford this, to be talking about this, is because they came in so low. So, they're local. It's something that the assembly has all the right to do, But
Is
you
there a
guys get to
limit-
ask all those
Is there a
questions.
limit on the percentage of change order you can do
That I
within
don't
the
know.
bid?
I wouldn't feel comfortable unless the attorney looked at it.
I mean, that's a pretty substantial change order when it,
10%.
Yeah.
How much of this are we prepared to lease out for storage?
That's probably 30.
15 or so.
Was it all parking in the, or what was our plan?
Right now, all we're doing has been temporary putting 30-day parking in there, which is most expensive parking lot you'll ever see.
'Cause,
I think it's.
Water is there.
The voters
demand.
rejected the Reed
I mean, you could
property, what
drive
was
out
that,
here with a
1.8?
crane and lift the docks and lift
We
the
could've got
shit
the
off
whole
and
Reed
drive
property
in there.
for that.
I mean, couldn't you?
With
If we had
storage
to.
Yeah.
and access,
With the
Space
dock.
right there.
and this,
Yeah.
that makes this
Way
look
more
kinda
storage.
expensive.
Maybe that's
You
the
think so?
direction we should be going in.
I can't see what that,
How
That'd
much
be
water is it?
reappropriated.
With the change order.
It doesn't, you have the.
16 feet of water at a zero tide. Where that-
16
That's on
feet?
the face of the dock. On back where you're talking about, it's sloped down
I
to
see
the
that.
bulkhead,
But so what kind of depth do you have out there? See at number 4 there, where,
what are you talking about?
well, on the approach dock. I'm seeing a lot of complications. I'm just trying to figure out, how can we get those bait sheds out? They're not heavy, they're just big. So I wondered if a guy could slide in with a starboard side in here, his
Couple
bow
fender
up towards there,
pilings
and
or
just
something.
use the approach dock and lift it
Well,
up.
at the first corner, you added 0, you have 10 feet. It's tapered down to 10 feet, so that would be, see right here, look at this, right here. You got a minus
See the
10, a minus
contours at the bottom.
15. So you have no water,
No water there, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
That's why
That's why we're
Trestle.
going out
Well, even
as
now,
far
they
as we are.
unload at a high tide pretty much.
But you'd
and
have
to
water at
dock
higher-
just for the
higher
boats are
water.
closer to the top, and
Right.
Yeah.
that's
right.
been my experience moving
Right.
sheds over there.
I'll bet you if you build it just the way it is, the guys will find a way to use that approach dock
Well,
and pick them
people
off there.
use the
I bet
grade
Dick
by the
would have
grid to
concern
load
for that,
gear all the
though.
time.
What?
Yeah.
But I bet
He
Dick
doesn't
would
get
have
to that.
concern with that.
Yeah.
Well,
Having
yeah.
a side load impact on that? I
Yeah.
don't think it's
Yeah.
designed
Yeah,
for that at all.
The
Pardon me?
footprint,
I don't
No.
think
Footprint.
Dick would like to hear that.
Made to lift it up
Well,
over
sometimes, well, but
10.
we're
sure
not
he
talking
wouldn't
about something
because
heavy,
he's
we're
not
talking
designed
about
Right, well,
something
the
big.
boat coming up against it could be heavy.
Oh, okay,
And you got a 10, 12 to lift it up and over a 10-foot
yeah,
And then you're tying up.
fence.
yeah.
yeah, he'd
That's,
want,
that's not big.
he'd want
No.
bumper piles
I
along
don't
there.
think a crane
like
truck can lift that
popcorn.
high.
uh,
I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Well, I think
Anyway.
that we just need to kind of come to a consensus on what direction we want to go as far as giving our.
I got one more
sense.
question.
Yeah.
What would it matter in our fill? You said it specifically that there would be a different way that we filled it,
Yeah,
softer, smaller,
not put the riprap,
the
all
riprap
that
on there
riprap there.
for 150 feet or whatever it is.
It's a savings.
'Cause all
You're
that
either
would
gonna
have
have
to
to
be
dig it
removed.
out,
Yeah,
so.
I think the riprap needs to be there on the fill to protect the next layer of rock, which is filter course to keep the water from getting into, wash out the,
It starts sloughing.
yeah.
Anyway,
So I appreciate you coming, Mark, to give us the,
well,
I mean, you know.
I talked to Glow about this, I think I mentioned to her a couple times, and that's, that's how Steve feels about it, and, but he doesn't make the decisions, ultimately, it's the assembly, and I don't know, I haven't talked to any other assembly members, I'm not going to. If it comes before us, then we'll discuss it there.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see us get a new police station. I'd love to see the money be there, but when it's in this situation and to gamble with the legislature at this point, I'm, for one, representing the harbor, and I think we should go with this project myself.
I don't think it's a gamble, personally, after the
Well,
6
if
years
it's
of dealing
not,
with
then-
him, so, otherwise I wouldn't suggest it. If there was a risk of losing the $1 million was left over from the fire hall, we wouldn't have done it. You're right, that was public safety money, but this is, basically just oil tax money. You know.
Yeah,
So anyway, just,
Yeah.
Well, Mark,
My
what
knowledge.
do you see, what do you think the harbor board could do?
well, if I was sitting on the harbor board, I'd probably recommend to the assembly to move forward with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can tell you, when it comes to the assembly, I mean, with the, I won't call it grief, with the discussion that took place when we were doing the capital projects list, and we started talking about police stations, and this room was full of fishermen saying, we need to drive down dock. Well, here we are. It's starting. We've got $2 million left over. You know,
Maybe.
So just think about what the people are gonna think. That's from my position, that, God, they've just got
It-
$15 million worth of harbors, and now they want this too, and we could use it for this dilapidated building?
But we already have the money.
Yeah.
Money's earmarked already.
No, it isn't.
Well, it is from my perspective.
It's granted. It's
Yeah.
it's in a grant.
Yeah.
I like Bob's
Well,
idea, just-
that's your guys' problem.
Huh?
We're gonna,
Oh, I know, yeah, so, I just, that's,
Bob just
that's-
suggested we buy
you know,
Reed's property for 1.6 million.
might wake up that day and have a different
Oh,
opinion.
there you
Right now,
go.
We're getting
Don't
this
even
thing
think
up.
about it.
There you go. And then we got storage too,
Yeah, but
and
that's
lots
already
more
been
room.
voted down.
Yeah, is that
Well, it is
possible
what it
to
is.
reappropriate for the Reed's properties?
Yeah, we gotta wait for more people.
Yeah, you run that by the voters.
Popular.
Yeah.
we get a heck of a lot more for our
Voters
buck.
have spoken.
Finance department has been looking at all different kind of ways to fund the finishing the police station project. We've got $4 million, it looks like it's gonna be 9. And this would get it closer, if this ever happened, it'd be 6. So you go try to bond $4 or $5 million right now in Petersburg, like we did for the pool, and say,
Right.
in Jody's property, taxes would go up $600 a year if you tried to bond what we need to replace this police station. So run that by the public. So anyway.
Bigger bite than the library.
I'm not gonna die on that hill myself, I'm just saying, my idea is.
No, I and I just don't know exactly what it is when it comes to the assembly. You know what to do it, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Just the way it feels, the feelings from downstairs and from me. and I'm
No,
just-
I'm glad you brought it up, but ultimately, that's your guys' job is to make that decision.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, someone won't like you. So.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just remember that.
No hard
Chloe won't
feelings,
let
but
me come and have coffee, or she definitely won't invite me to a meeting if there's cookies.
Our job is to support the harbor, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I don't,
Yep.
yeah.
Now Kurt, in my notes, I have West Wall Kurt written
Yeah,
there.
that's good, yeah. If it goes through, you'll have to memorialize it for me, probably kill me.
And we'll name the tax increase, property tax increase for the police station after you too. there.
I don't know what the funny looks.
Well, from my point of view, I just think it's gonna be a tough sell with, only Kurt basically on the harbor end of things for the assembly. So, but we gotta make a decision amongst
But I-
us as far
but
as
I
what
think-
recommendation we wanna
Well,
make.
and I think this is a valuable thing. We are going to, if the shipyard does get their act together, they are going to take the bait house storage from us. We did not get a chance to buy reeds, so I don't know that we will. If we end up with no gear storage, I don't know, that will impact our fleet. So I don't know that we'll
Absolutely.
ever get any closer to building any kind of dock on this big fill area. So I think this is a really wise use of this
Absolutely.
money.
It's important.
Really
too.
important to our
So
fleet.
what more can we do then, encourage this to happen?
We can,
Tell them you're all taxpayers too.
move forward with this and,
We are.
and go to the assembly meeting and voice your opinion and contact PVOA and say it's time to rally again if you feel this way. And then just add to the conversation. If I'm there by myself, just honestly,
Yeah.
but
Or me.
Yeah.
if there's
When will this
activity.
go before the assembly?
Well, if you want to put it on this next agenda, it's up to the mayor to.
When's our fishermen gonna be here? Are
Well,
would
if, we have to do it at this next meeting, because
Oh.
otherwise we lose the opportunity. If
So-
it sits there and languishes for a couple of years, you know, it's going to,
It's gonna be a hard
it'll
sell.
drift away from,
Well, to get into this construction period, it's gotta happen the
it's
next,
gotta happen at this next.
Immediately.
assembly, Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
So
We
we
do
need to
have,
show
we do
up
have some
in
problems
force.
that were pointed out though about the legal problems about what do you expand the contract with Tamico, or is this a new contract? I mean,
theirs,
It can,
yeah.
it can
Oh,
be, I
yeah.
mean, it's gonna take a
It's a
little
new
while to
bid.
get it.
I mean, as long as everybody's behind it, you could either go out to a new bid and then if you do that, then it'll be a couple years before we do this, and we will lose the opportunity to save money with
Oh, because of the
Tamico.
time.
Mobilization and all that.
If we add this as
Change order.
a change order,
Yeah.
I think Tamico would be thrilled. They'll get a
Yeah.
little extra work out of it.
Right,
We know the
right.
numbers. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Right.
None of this is something impossible.
Right.
This is pretty standard. We know what the price tag is. Negotiate that with them and move forward on it. I don't think it's it might be a sizable change order, but again, the only reason why we're here is because Tamico's bid was so low. So,
Right.
I mean, and it being a local contractor, I think you're gonna run into a little bit less of, an issue. Western Dock was, $2 million higher. I mean, they were $2 million higher.
Mhm.
So if Western Dock had gotten them, the ones that are building the North Harbor, we wouldn't be having this conversation because
Right.
all of the money would have been used.
Right, I
They
was gonna
bid
say.
9.9.
Right, we wouldn't be having this
9.8.
conversation if it would've come in at 11 million.
Yeah, so
Because
this
we
is
have a
the
little
only
left over
reason
doesn't
why
mean
we're
that
here.
Is there any way
Taken
we
from
can
us.
really quickly get an idea from Jimmy before we, I mean, it would really help the council, I
Well,
think,
I
assembly.
think it's
to
key
know
right
what-
now to get the attorney's opinion so that we can go to the assembly with, like, this is legal or this isn't legal. You know, I think that's the key to it right now. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Martinson would probably come up with
With a nice
an
bid.
idea, but it
And
has to
maybe
be
it wouldn't be
legal.
too many.
And that's where, if we go to them and say, oh yeah, we've talked to the attorney, so I think it's important that we get the attorney's
Well,
opinion on it.
It's their attorney, it's not our attorney.
I know, well,
So
it's
you gotta
ours.
go, you'd have to, Mark, or Mike would probably have to go down and talk to Steve about it and see if he wanted to do some of this backward work.
Well, I
to-
think it would be important to have that to go
Have you
to.
have you talked to Dick Somerville about the change order size?
Yeah,
And what did he say? He said it could be done?
sure,
He thought that it could legally be done?
sure.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
It'd be really hard to put a dollar or percentage value on a change order.
No.
Because you don't, there are eventualities that come out of nowhere a lot of the time.
I understand that, but I mean, you're still looking at 1.8 here versus a bid of what, 7 point? You
Of
know,
8
that's a
million.
big percentage.
It might be an ethical
Well-
issue more than
Yeah.
a legal issue.
well, but it is, the reason why we're here is because we have, I mean, this money is available. It's just like when you build a house and a contractor comes in and says, I can do it for $104 a square foot, and you go, okay, now I can afford that deep sink. Or now I can afford that. I mean, that.
It's not unreasonable.
No, it's not at all. There's no hang up here.
Well, the original plan was
This is
to include
phase
that.
two.
This,
Phase
yeah,
two.
this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
This
and
is
it, and it was,
phase,
it
and
was part of the original plan
we
for
would
this
have
drive
added
down.
it as another,
Add an
Alternative, yeah.
alternative,
It would've been on
Hindsight
had we
2020.
had a clue.
Yeah.
It
Right.
could have
But
been
the
alternative.
stars aligned because, and many of you have heard me explain this, but the reason why we're here also is that we are building this facility 6 months after Ketchikan, and Ketchikan has taken it in the short on our behalf. Everything that we're doing is following their design, following the same manufacturers, all that kind of stuff. The same company that's building theirs today is planning on building ours next month. And so they're just rolling right into building the exact same design, and we ended up scoring huge on that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's just, I mean, now you can afford the carport.
So
you know?
we probably should have a motion and put it on the floor, you know, so it's in our meeting minutes that we support this,
Sure.
you know, and follow it through. You know, if that's what the majority of us think, so.
Why is this the only thing we're looking at? Seems like it'd be nice to have some choices as to, you know, what were some other potential additive alternatives that
We got them all.
we got them all.
We got every
This is
single
the
one
last-
of them.
this is it?
Well, phase two, and phase two is 5.6 million. We
get the
couldn't
crane?
afford 5.6
We
million,
get the
which is the
crane?
entire sheet, you know, 180 feet. I asked him, what can we afford for, you know, 1.8
This wasn't
million?
actually one of our alternatives.
No,
And
it
what's
the
the
crane was,
surface,
though.
what was our original plan? I know we had
On
some-
the float?
was not an alternative.
No, but that was one of the things that we
Yeah,
have.
it's on our wish
in-
list.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the foundations for
And I
it.
think we can afford that under the contingency 5% of
You're
the
hoping.
existing project,
the crane.
yeah.
What,
Well, we just don't wanna let go of this money. Don't wanna lose it.
what was the surface gonna be? We had some concrete drainage structures on the surface. Didn't we have some, and there was some,
There's the plan. For what?
oh, I can't. What was the plan for the surface
Of what?
of the bulkhead? No, the
Oh, the parking lot?
parking lot. Is it a parking lot? Is it paved?
It's a gravel parking lot.
And there were some drainage, concrete drainage things?
Yep, they have
into
to
that?
because we're required by law to put oil separators.
I don't think did we talk about an alternative,
can't
of
afford paving.
blacktopping that, we kinda threw that was kind of on our
Well,
wish list too, but
a lot of it depends on how you word this to the borough.
Right.
So it would be continuing on or with the original phase two of the drive down.
Well, like you said, it was one of the
West.
additives.
Is that
right?
in here somewhere?
That we
Yeah.
had to take off the table.
Yeah.
This was one of
It
the.
was part of the
items that we had to
project.
take off
Part of the
Yeah, this
project
has always
to begin
been,
Because we thought it was gonna cost us more.
it's phase two.
It was always
See
part
where
of the
the money
project.
We were directed by the
Money
council
may-
back
see if
when
it's
to
possible.
make this elaborate
This may just be a pipe dream.
scheme for the
This-
marine
That's what
facilities.
Nancy
to
was doing,
incorporate
everyone,
people.
yeah, and Nancy
Yeah.
and Cindy, they had to, this is the original part of the project that we
It
had to
is.
take off,
Yeah.
because we thought it was gonna cost more money.
As far as I
Now,
was concerned, this was the whole project. We could forget
Right.
the drive down dock. That's all we needed was.
Yeah,
this little
right,
gear.
ooh, don't go there.
I already said it once, it's on record. I said it twice.
So what we need to do is get a motion to present to the Borough Assembly and see where it goes from there, and then just show up in, you know, Viking uniforms.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
I think the motion says something like consistent with the original design.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, well-
we would recommend that you approve this,
Additive.
well, it's
Not
a change,
additive.
it's change order,
Oh, yeah, change.
you know, because we had, you know, consistent with the original design of the project.
It's gonna be important
And
to
it was
come
cut
up
out.
with this motion, and we need to be real careful how we come up with it.
The wording of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, to make it persuasive.
Turn off the mics and we'll go, we'll come up with a motion, because,
I like that,
It-
consistent with the original design.
Yeah.
Approve this potential change order.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, it's been moved to, we wanna read that?
well, if we get a motion in a second and we pass it, at least the assembly will know that the harbor board is behind it.
Exactly.
That,
You know, I mean, they're gonna argue the points
yeah.
Yeah.
back and forth here,
But I think it's important that whatever is read to them as our motion that we are taking forward would be kind of an important thing that says how we feel and why we're doing it. And I think those words are consistent with the original plan.
yeah, this has always been part of our,
What are we
Ideal.
calling this? The
Phase two.
West wall.
west wall?
so.
North
Yes,
No,
it's
it-
the
we're
north
not calling,
wall.
yeah.
North
Well,
wall.
it's not
So
the
what was
west wall.
what was Bob's motion there?
there's a west wall somewhere on the west coast. Is it
Seattle.
Seattle? Is it Seattle?
Yeah.
This is kind of,
In the ship
The
canal.
whole point of a west
Fisherman's
wall
Canal.
is when you don't have a tide. You come up beside something that's consistent
It
and
is
you
on
step
Lake
from a
Union,
boat
right?
onto a, yes, that's
Wall.
what a west, that's what that is. This is a
we need some blocks.
tidal. This is a,
It's a tidal
this is
wall.
a loading dock.
It's the
Even the
North
West Wall
Tidal.
describes
Are
a
we unanimous?
non-tidal
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
So,
We may
I
not
thought it
be
was
unanimous.
just, I thought it was just the
Meeting now.
geographical location of a one in Seattle.
so
might
what
be
do you,
talking
what do you
for
wanna
that
do? You wanna
road job.
reword your
Well,
motion
I'm
and we
just
can
trying to
move it
put,
along?
I just wanted to get the idea to the assembly that this was the original design, consistent with the original, plans for this, you know.
That we
And we
support.
can
That
now
that we
afford it.
support it because it's consistent with what we originally designed and approved and built. We had to take that out because of budget concerns, but now that we have the plans, we want to go ahead with the original idea.
Okay, so the motion is that we want to move forward with the plans that were
Phase
consistent
2.
with the original idea of how to put in this facility.
Both
And that we-
concept and design, original concept and the original design for the plan, for the drive down.
Yep.
Okay, so is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send a message to the assembly that we support the concept of adding this, not adding it, but to continue with the original plans and design of our project with this extra, or the
Bulkhead
money
loading.
that's.
With the wall
Bulkhead-
unloading or whatever. you
bulkhead
wanna call
loading
it.
dock.
Bulkhead
Bulkhead
unloading
loading.
dock,
Okay,
yeah.
all those in favor of sending that message to the assembly, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
Yeah,
And,
Mark mentioned the public safety transfer from the firehouse to,
Yeah,
was there any element to that firehouse design that was left unfinished?
I don't think
Where
so,
that money
except they forgot to
could have
put the
gone.
police station in it.
No, there was not.
We do have something like that, you know, that's maybe a good point to bring
Yeah.
up to the assembly too.
Yeah, they
we-
got
we-
their.
And the rationale for why this isn't important, I think, is really where we'll gain the most traction, is that we're looking further down. We don't think we'll ever be able to secure monies, to be able to make this, I mean, even if we got 80 feet of a dock, even if we split the difference and we kept, I mean, if we could have just somewhere to be able to, turn that fill area into a reasonable storage, it just changes the entire value of that property. We're looking down the future at the shipyard expanding. We're looking down the future of possibly John Glenn buying the Reeds. We're looking at securing this valuable waterfront that we're losing.
I wouldn't hold your breath there.
Constantly losing. And,
say that.
will we ever get funding,
Yeah, to be able to do this.
to be able to do this? And
Would
so, I think that's.
would it be completely lost to storage if we didn't have the
How do you
didn't
get
have the wall? I mean,
Well, you are limited to what you can put in there. You can only get things that are small enough to come up that ramp, which
Mhm.
then they could take it down the
because
highway.
any other way, you have to go out, you have to get out to the road and then around. to the-
Yes,
So it's a revenue source.
huge revenue.
It's a added revenue source if we can have it for storage.
Right.
So that's a point to make, I mean, from the department, from the harbor department point of view to
Yeah.
this is a revenue source ultimately
Mhm.
that will be lost to us if we don't have the storage there. Original part of the plan, we now have the money to complete it, to do it the way we originally conceived of it and designed it. And two, if we don't do it, now, of course, I mean, we lose a revenue source down the road.
We're already
because-
losing that revenue source because they're all out at his place.
And the shipyard you guys are still pursuing that thought of expanding and eliminating that storage.
It might be
out
farther down the road
Oh, yeah,
than we
right.
originally thought, but yeah, of course.
there. No, it's the same thing with the Reed property. I mean, it may be years before we sell that property, and I'm at the conflict of, I don't want to lose the revenue, but I think that this is the future, so I mean, I'd love to take this 1.8 million and give it to myself and
We tried.
Okay, well, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about in regards to this? So, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, thanks for coming, and when are we gonna meet again?
Next November.
Well, you know, there's been a little change at the level of the borough level, that realistically, you don't have to meet on a monthly if there's nothing really to discuss or talk or, you know, to decide. There's no decision. We pretty much had this meeting because of the Steve Berry thing. But, you know, just to get together and eat cookies is not really.
When's the
It's
next,
fun.
It's
yeah,
fun.
when's the next, assembly meeting, Monday? Or a
No,
week from Monday?
week from Monday, so we
Okay,
have-
well, try to put it on your calendar so as get as many of us there as we can, and maybe get some support from some of the guys that are not here.
'Cause if I'm the only one there, it ain't gonna get very far.
Now, off the record, do you feel that Steve Berry will be similar to John Burgess as far as taking care of a property? I mean, we were pretty impressed with John.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
I think
Especially
Steve would be
with
good.
John being his.
I think it's a good choice of responsible
Oh, yeah, he's
person.
welcoming. He should. It's good for his business.
Yeah, it is. It's good for everybody. It's good
Can I
for-
fill my pockets with these
I
cookies?
think what they could have done for 1.8 million out there.
Yeah.
I get to take my
Well, we could've
crackers
bought
home.
some crop. And then, and done some work to it. So what was your property, 1.4? The dock? So we'd have 400 left over.
Yeah, well, I think we'd be. wouldn't
When's
be very lucky.
the harbor gonna be finished?
The North Harbor? Well, 17th of May, we're planning a ribbon cutting.
17th of May?
What date in May?
17th of May festival. We're having a party.
Okay.
So,
So that means the Haleo will already be there.
you're telling us on the
Right.
16th of May we get to move in, or?
That's what they find. They're gonna turn it over to us, I think. That's the date. If
So
they
you-
don't, then they start paying
You
us.
should give us a day and just say, okay, go.
Go
And
for
everybody
it.
gets a stall that they can get.
And then just watch us.
That'd be great.
Watch Strumville just go.
I paid to see that.
That'd be classic. That's what they should have. It's all the Harbor Board guys.
Anchored up out
Just
there.
have all the Harbor Board guys just
Flare
lining up.
Off goes the flare and goes.
I think that'd be classic. Thank
Get
you
a
guys.
month free rent. Be interesting.
So you guys are going out ice skating today?
Didn't Swoog it out 1.4?
Hey, Bobby. you
Yeah, I
want-
forgot my papers. I like that idea of the chain. I mean, consider that, and
We gotta wait for
Kurt's idea of moving the tables back a little bit is fine too, because if this is chain link, and this is chain link to about here, and you put the tables in here, then in the middle and on this side, because you can't have boats tying up, they're not going to be coming off here at all. This will be all vacant, and so you can put your "I'm the greatest fisherman in Petersburg, Alaska" sign there that they can hold their pictures up, and there isn't going to be any sea lion going to grab their butts or drag them overboard or
Now, the new
whatever.
dock is not gonna have the hanger thing for hanging the fish on
I'm
with
sure
a
it
sign.
will.
Well, over here.
These guys are just designing the float. They're not designing the upper part.
Well,
So-
I was just thinking if you put that chain
Yeah,
fence and
it's a
moved everything back a
triangle.
little bit, you can put the sign there,
That's what I mean.
and it would
Well,
protect
you
the
wouldn't
people
want-
hanging
Yeah.
the fish.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't want the tables in front of the sign. I mean, that doesn't.
You don't think so?
Okay, so you're holding, there's your fish cleaning table that's up this high, and I'm hanging my halibut 4
No, in
feet
between.
away.
You're in between. The tables are on each side of you, going out this way, and you're in between going, look at
And the
me.
chain
Have you
fence,
seen our fence, have you seen
and
our
what is the
table?
chain fence behind you, like here,
Okay.
right?
I guess, I don't know. We actually we can, once they build this float, they give it to us bare bones.
Yeah, right.
And then we can fart around and put the tables here or here and the
Right.
chain link fence, and
Right.
they're not doing any of
How's
that.
your electric fence working? So, instead of a chain fence, we put the electric
Electric
fence around there.
fence, hey.
And we just electrocute.
The people, whoops!
I don't know.
So,
You know, for me,
That can give us some time. We can talk that part through. It's just this design of the surface of the
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
float itself
Right,
is
right.
what they're designing.
So the actual surface.
They're not
but
designing.
I worry about these sea lions. I mean, they are really
I
a
like
problem.
the chain foot like.
If we had regular lions, I mean, people would be protected from them, you know?
Yeah, if we had
But
brown
the-
bears roaming around.
That's right.
No problem.
Yeah, so, I
But
mean,
they are off of the endangered species list at least.
oh, really?
They're still on the marine
Threatened.
mammal, but they're not even on the threatened list.
Oh,
But I mean, from
so
the
maybe
Army
a few.
Corps viewpoint, they're a big
You only
deal.
go to jail for 10 years.
From what?
Oh, from the permit process, I just got a permit for my dock out there last fall, and
You know
the
what?
sea lions were a big issue in the endangered
You know what,
species.
Glenn?
Yeah.
They've now talking, I got documents that they're talking, 800 meters now. We went from 200 meters at the drive down to 350 at our crane dock permitting. Now the newest one out is they're mandating.
I'd have to look at my
800.
permit, but I
What is-
think,
what are we
I
talking
think
about?
mine is 900 meters.
That's from here to town.
I know, it's clean across 900 meters is
That's over
2,500
half a
feet.
mile.
It's,
What are you
I'd have to
talking
have,
about?
That you can't have to stop, cease and desist if you see an animal within
you have to
that.
have a observer.
I mean, stop for
You
half
can't,
an
you
hour.
can't drive a piling or
You
something.
can't fart. I mean, you can't do anything.
Here, you need some help?
It's, yeah.